Hey guys, welcome back to Sideways Garage. I'm Thomas, and this is my 1997 BMW E36. Today I'm going to be going over a little bit of a history of it, how I got to where it is now, as well as my future plans for my 2J swap. For starters, I picked this car up in October of 2022. It was running, engine was under 100,000 miles, it was manual, everything like that, clean interior. It was a perfect example. I definitely paid way more than I would like to admit for it, but we'll get to that in another story. It was running, but it had a little bit of an idling problem. The guy that I bought it from claimed, and I figured that it was something that I could easily fix. I'd like to get wrenching, everything like that. And so I bought it and towed it home. And then I come to find out that I definitely should have done a lot more research while looking at the car, because it was very obvious that it had been auto to manual swapped. It wasn't a terrible swap. It had been done properly, everything like that. And it ran, once I got it running, it was driving perfectly fine. The only problem was that the ECU still thought it was an automatic, so it was trying to compensate, and it was idling really weird. So I picked up an ECU from Castle Performance, which worked perfectly. It did everything that I needed it to, and the car was running great. After that, I was able to get the title transferred over because I was able to pass emissions and everything like that. Then, yeah, I was driving the car, like to school, to work, everything like that, every now and then. And then one day, the radiator fan just decided to explode on me, and it dented my hood, and I was very upset about it. But then it sat for maybe like a week, and then I bought an entirely new cooling system from Mishimoto, and I upgraded the water pump and the water pump housing and everything on it. And once we got all that installed, everything was great again. It was even better than before. After that was when I decided to pick up my wheels, the Style 5s. I just really like them. I really like how they look, and I think they fit the car very well. Shortly after that, in about December, was when we all decided to take a trip up to Flagstaff. We all kind of live in Mesa, so it was like a couple-hour drive up to Flagstaff. We were going to spend the weekend up there. Me, Garrett, Jake, and all of our cars, the RX-8, the Mustang, and the E36. We made it up there just fine. Everything was great. And then one day in, we go out to breakfast, and my oil light comes on, and I was like, ooh, it kind of sounds really rough. And we all had our walkie-talkies, and we were talking, and they were like, Thomas, why does your car sound like a diesel right now? Because it did. It sounded terrible. And then we stop for breakfast, we eat, then I get more oil just because I figured maybe it was a little low or something like that. Then as we're driving it back, it absolutely just exploded on me. The engine we were driving, cruising on the freeway, and I was like, it was getting really loud and it sounded terrible. And I heard this big boom, and then I pulled over to the side of the road and I radioed to the guys, and I was like, guys, I think it's done. And then they were like, are you sure? And then they turned around and saw the gigantic cloud of smoke that was bellowing out from behind my car. So then we waited on the side of the road for a while. AAA came, picked up the car. We were debating on whether we should have it towed back to the cabin we were staying at or back to my house back in Mesa, which would have been very expensive. So we decided to just tow it to the cabin, and we left it there for about like a month or so. We went and picked it up again in January, and then it sat at my parents' house for a while. When we picked it up, we looked at it and we saw there was a hole in the oil pan and everything like that, and it was not good. And after further inspection, while I had it back at my parents' house, I noticed that there was an entire piston rod in the oil pan, and that is not a very good sign. So kind of just letting it sit, thinking about what to do. Originally, I was gonna swap another M52 into it, just get it running back into stock shape. And I was kind of, joking about the idea of maybe LS swapping or 2JZ swapping or something like that, just because it was intended to be a drift car and to just be for fun, basically, just my project car. After it sat for a while, I moved out of my parents' house when we moved into this house, me and Jake, and we had to get it from my parents' house to this house so that we could actually start working on it. And we did that in February of this year, 2023. And now the car's here. We pulled the engine here. Then even after more inspection on the engine, there is a hole directly through my block, like straight through it. You can see clearly through it. It is not great. Yeah, so we pulled the engine, and I was like, well, I definitely cannot just rebuild this engine. I have to get either a new engine or swap something into it. I had been researching LS swapping it because that seemed like a smarter idea just for nice powers, for drifting, everything like that. And then I randomly started watching Alberto Big Boost's 2J swap for his E36, and that really got me interested in that. And so I joined this Facebook group about 2J swapping BMWs, or JZ swapping BMWs, and lo and behold, there was a post from a couple weeks ago right after I had joined, and some guy was saying that he had a 2JZ and a rear sump oil pan and the mounts for it all for $800. And I was like, that is perfect, because that's like a free engine basically. And he was located in Sacramento. So I was messaging the guy and I said, hey, do you still have it? And he said, yep, I got it. I kind of want to sell it all as one piece, so I'm not really looking to part it out. And I was like, no, I have an E36. You have exactly what I'm looking for, because he had the mounts to go into an E36. He had the trans mount. He had everything. He had the rear sump oil pan to make it fit right. And I was like, this is exactly what I need. And so then we talked about it, set a date, and we drove all the way to Sacramento from Arizona in one weekend. It was, I think, a total of 30 hours there and back. And we drove straight there, picked it up, also picked up a transmission while I was out there because I was just looking for one, because there's not very many in Arizona that I could find. But yeah, so drove up there, picked up the engine, the transmission, and turned right back around and drove straight home. It was definitely not a smart idea, and I definitely do not recommend anybody doing that over the course of one weekend. Yeah, so if we take a look over here, we have the 2J over here. It is from an IS300. The mileage is a little bit questionable on it. It is somewhere from 150 to 200k miles, which is a lot, but that's why it's staying non-turbo, because I don't know, and I don't want to go hard on an engine that has unknown mileage, because that seems dangerous, and it seems like it's just an easy way to blow up your engine. So that's why staying non-turbo, and eventually, if and when I do decide to go with a turbo 2J setup, I will just buy another engine and build up that one that I know what the mileage is, hopefully one that's way lower, and I just think that's the smarter idea. I just have some generic headers on here, just got it to a single exit. I think I'll get that all figured out later when I get it all in the car. Here's the rear sump oil pan that the guy gave me, and here there is some excessive motor mounts and an excessive manufacturing trans mount. The transmission that I picked up while I was in Sacramento is a Getrag 420G from an E36 M3, which I am so excited for because it's a 6-speed. It holds a bunch of power, and I sure hope that I can stick with this transmission for a while. But if you total up the price of buying a rear sump oil pan, excessive manufacturing trans mount, and an excessive manufacturing motor mounts for this car, you're looking at maybe $900, $1,000, depending on what you can find a rear sump oil pan for. And I paid $800 for everything here except for the transmission. The transmission I bought separately, and the headers, but those were like $200. It wasn't bad. And if we take a look over here, I kind of have my mountain of parts. I've got some rev shift motor and transmission mounts. I've got a Cooler Works self-centering shifter, which I'm super excited for. These look awesome. I have a Tilton dual clutch setup, everything like that. I have my PMC adapter plate and flywheel. I have my ECU that I that I bought on eBay, and it has no immobilizer, so that's going to be nice for wiring up. I've got my Wiring Specialties wiring pin kit. To do that, I have a serpentine belt right here, and I have my little eBay intake. And yeah, that's about all the parts that I've got and what you guys can expect to see in maybe the next coming video once I get my Chase base stuff in that I've been waiting on for a little bit. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit that like button. And if you want to watch me build this engine and this car, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you don't miss a thing. See you next time.